Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us and signing up to participate in our topic today. My name is Danae Evans. I'm the CEO of CMLS, the Council of Multiple Listing Services, and want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded and we will post it on the CMLS website by tomorrow. And I also believe that we're sharing it with other organizations to use and promote, and I believe it will be on the NAR website as well. The topic for today, as I mentioned, is the proposed changes on MLS policy 7.42 and 7.43. There are other policies that are being proposed at the upcoming meetings at NAR Annual next week, but we will not be covering those other topics today. We felt that this one was big enough that we had questions and different perspectives to share that we were just going to address those. But I will let you know that in the links we set out in the emails announcing the webinar, there are links to those resources, which I believe NAR has completed. There's a video that Tom Berge, that's one of our panelists today, had done with some FAQs. So we would reference you there for information on those others. And if you do have any questions about those particular policies that we're not speaking of today, please feel free to email those to the address at the bottom of the screen here, mls@realtors.org. So with that, let's jump right into the webinar today. The purpose and why CMLS decided to go ahead and do this webinar in advance of the meetings is we want to help get the information out to our members and to the industry so that people can really understand what's being proposed. We can talk through what is known information that's been part of the process. We can bring up some questions and concerns that people might have and help address those and work through those of what might possibly be the unintended consequences or the pieces that were not. They had very comprehensive discussions about this. I think it's gone through a fairly long vetting process, but you know, giving the opportunity for the industry to really be aware of what information is out there and the resources available to them to educate themselves, and then making the decisions that are best for your particular market, your area, and your organizations. But we want to just help share the information and give you all of that so that you have really solid information of which to work with your organizations. For today's, the way we're going to run the webinar today is we're going to go through each one of our panelists and have them share a little bit on their perspective in what the process has been up to this point, the conversations that were had, the motivations behind it, and so they'll share a little bit of that, and then we've got some questions for them that we've been receiving or hearing that we're going to ask them. If you, as attendees to the webinar, have questions, we would like to ask you to go ahead and put them in the chat box. And if you would please make sure and include in your question your name and information and who you represent. So are you an MLS staff? Are you a broker? Are you association? So just get us that information so we can help understand the perspective in which the question is coming from. That will be very helpful, and I think we'll be able to give better answers and information to this. The other piece that I just want to make sure everyone's aware of on our, we're going to switch between the panelist names here so you can see who's speaking, but then also the resources page that we have up. CMLS did do earlier this year. We produced a white paper where we surveyed the CMLS membership and really tried to research this a lot so that would help, again, get you the information about what is the current landscape, how is this impacting, and give you the resources to make your decisions. The white paper link is the very first one. It is also on the CMLS website, and if you click on that, our website is on the top. I don't think we have that screen up, but under resources on our website, and then the other two are on the nar.org website where you can see those, and this will be posted. We will have these links. They're also in the emails that you received to register for the webinar. And the other piece, I think I said put your questions in the chat box. I did not say that correctly. It's actually putting them into the questions box, not chat. So that way it scrolls for us and we can pull that. obviously I don't run the logistics on the webinar, so thank you. If your questions are not getting done, I'll be checking the chat box, so I'll get that out to everyone. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panelists and thank them for participating today. First, we will start with Mr. Tom, who is been a great voice in helping to get the information out about this. He is the chair of the MLS Issues and Policy Committee, and so he is going to share with us a little bit today about why the committee thought that this was important, how did it come up, what was the process they used to get to where we are today. Next, we have Mr. Matt Consalvo. He is the CEO of the Arizona Regional MLS. He is also on the committee. He's also a director for CMLS. Sam DeBoard, he is VP of Coldwell Banker Danforth, and he is also on the committee and is really bringing us the broker perspective today and what was some of the concerns and reasons that it was brought forward. And then we have Katie Johnson, General Counsel and Senior VP at NAR, and so she's here to answer if there's legal side to it, and also obviously she was part of the process to help us understand how did we get to where we are today and just be a resource there. So thank you all to my panelists for joining us today and working hard to get prepared and help deliver the information and education to our attendees. So with that, I will go ahead and ask if Sam, if you will lead us off today and really share with the attendees the reason why did this bubble up? What was the issue? What was the challenge they were having, and the motivation for bringing it up at this point in time? How did we get here? What started it all?
Sure, and thank you for setting this up, Danae and Betsy, as well to everyone who's gotten on the call today. It's great that we can, continue this discussion and make sure everybody is as involved as possible. So a lot of you will remember, if you were at mid-year in May or you read about it, we brought this topic up because this is what the Emerging Tech Advisory Board saw as the way to go forward with the MLS broker relationship. So as Danae said, we did a white paper this year on the topic, got a lot of feedback through NAR. But the basics of the proposal are because of concerns we received from brokers around the country. They're looking for a more modern MLS service structure that recognizes some of the evolving business models that are out there. And in light of some changing technology and workplace trends, they're hoping to encourage a more value-driven service model for the broker MLS relationship. So the guts of the issue in 7.42 and 7.43 are, with the current policy, brokers and their affiliated licensees can be assessed MLS fees based solely on their realtor association jurisdiction and office affiliation, rather than which services best meet the needs of clients and customers. And this has caused things like real estate firms having to open up dummy offices in different areas to basically get out of a jurisdiction and to escape assessments for licensees who don't want to use that particular MLS. Either that or some of them who want to grow and expand and hire more agents just don't grow into new service areas because of the artificial costs that are in front of them. It's not that these brokers want their agents out of the MLS. These brokers want their agents to use the MLS, but they only want them to have to pay for the MLSs that those agents are going to use. So the current situation for a lot of brokers creates an unnecessary financial barrier for brokers who want to grow and work with more agents in more, multiple MLS service areas. So we looked at, brokers and agents serving increasingly expanded markets, new technology and cloud-based business services and structures gaining traction. And we thought it would be really prudent for us to reevaluate our MLS service structure and basically to move along as brokerages are moving along and MLSs are moving along, to evolve that partnership so we're stronger as partners and there's more of a service value-based relationship there. So something we always want to reiterate, the policy is not about creating an if agents are in an MLS. If a broker participates in one or more MLSs, their agents need to pay subscriber dues and be subscribers in an MLS. But this allows them to pick which, one or many, but they still need to be MLS subscribers.
Great, Sam. Thank you for that. And just to be clear, because that has been something that was, especially when we were doing the research for the white paper, just the clarification that does this mean it can be no MLS?
Not at all. We set this up purely to make sure that we are reinforcing the value of the MLS, the value of the broker MLS relationship, that we want agents to be encouraged to not go off market and not go to private listing networks, and to give them a flexible service structure where they're paying for services that they value and they use. So they must still, agents must be subscribers to one or more MLSs if their broker is a participant in one or more MLSs.
Great. Okay, thank you. And so next I'm going to move to Tom. Tom, if you could then go ahead and give us, as the chair of the MLS Issues and Policy Committee, what has been your process? And I'm sure I can't even imagine the stack of paper that came in with the comments and the participation, which I think is a great sign of people really participating in providing their input and their perspective on how this should play out and what it should look like. So tell us a little bit of that process, and how did the committee get to where it is today? What's with this recommendation and the process that was used?
Sure. Thank you, Danae, and thank you for everyone that is participating on the call today. It's my pleasure to be here, and I appreciate all of your time. And the reason for doing this is we want to solicit your feedback. We want to get your ideas. We want to make sure that we get this right. We understand that there's going to be growing pains, as there is with any type of change. Change is difficult for many, but we do want to hear your feedback. We do take it into consideration, and we want to try to get this right. That said, the policy proposal eliminates the discretionary ability of MLSs to assess fees based on all firm offices located within the jurisdiction of the associations that own and operate the service. The proposal also creates the option of a no-cost waiver for licensees who do not want or use the MLS, provided that they already subscribe to a different MLS of their broker, which Sam has alluded to previously. No cost simply means that the MLS cannot charge a fee to receive the waiver. It's important to note that the waived licensee cannot access or use the MLS's data and services. Consequently, the MLS can require that waived individuals and their brokers sign a certificate of non-use, which, if violated, would lead to sanctions and subsequent assessment of MLS fees. While the MLS Tech and Emerging Issues Advisory Board acknowledges that there may be some administrative issues to work out locally, we were unanimous in support of the proposal, and we concluded that the administration must give way to the needs of the brokerage community whom we service. Another non-substantive change of the policy proposal will replace the terminology of MLS territory and jurisdiction to MLS service area. This will help differentiate between Association of Realtors jurisdictions and MLS service areas, which can and often are different geographic areas.
Hey, Tom, we have a couple of questions. The first one is from Kathy Condon. Has anyone thought of the expense of monitoring these certificates of non-use? The multiple listing issues, the MLS Tech and Emerging Issues Advisory Board, which is made up of brokers and MLS execs, discuss different aspects of implementations should it pass. But we thought that would be best left up to local determination.
Great. And then,
and actually, Betsy, before we go to the next question, just to add on to that, Tom, as I understand it in some of the research that we did with our white paper, is that there are several MLSs that do have systems or processes in place to do this.
Well, I can give you an example, and this is strictly based on California Regional Multiple Listing Service. And for full disclosure, I am the chairman of the board of California Regional Multiple Listing Service, as well as being the chair of MLS policy at NAR. And CRMLS, the way that we do it is we take a pretty passive approach to those issues. It's not something, I'm talking about the administration of unauthorized access. It's not something that's widely done in California as far as strict enforcement. What we do is we also push a lot of it to our local AORs who control roster. And our plan, if this rule goes through, is going to be managed with technology that we already have in place with password sharing security technology that we utilize through Clarity. And we handle inappropriate access into our database through those technological system protections. We would probably contemplate adding a recommendation to all our AOR participants that they add to all of their participant agreements some similar type of language that would be included regarding the waiver. That being, we would push it back to the brokers, and if they are caught giving a non-CRMLS member CRMLS data through a back office feed or by printed paper copies, then we would go after them and impose significant fines upon them. That right now is our plan, but ours really is a more passive approach than others may use because things are different in different states. We in California really do not have a problem in this area to tackle due mainly to scale and our size and the amount of data shares that we currently have in place. So we really don't have a problem with people grabbing our data inappropriately, as many other realtors in California already have access to the data through our data share agreements that we currently have in place.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that example. And then I think maybe adding on to that, Matt, I haven't asked you for your perspective as the MLS, but I'm wondering if maybe you have some response to this particular question that came in.
Absolutely, thank you. This topic has been discussed now for well over a year, and so there's been an opportunity to come across a lot of different meetings that MLSs and MLS executives have been to, and kind of broach some of these subjects. And I've really come down to a couple opinions on it. One is MLSs that find value in policing this aspect of membership are policing it today. And they are putting forth effort and time into the auditing or into the processes of their current membership policies. And I don't necessarily see an adopted change like that is proposed to 7.42 and 7.43 significantly changing either their commitment or their implementation of that commitment. The other piece to it is the MLSs that have chosen not to pursue any type of enforcement of membership policy. I don't understand why a change to the policy would require them to start policing it. If you do not have a methodology and you do not have enforcement or some choice to enforce today, adoption of an optional policy or a change to an optional policy shouldn't necessarily change that direction for you.
All right. And I have some questions on security too. Tom touched on that a little bit, and so we'll dig into that in a few minutes. But Matt, if you would then go ahead and take a few minutes just to give us your perspective as the MLS exec. You were on this committee as part of the CMLS agreement with NAR and the additional states that were added to this particular committee. So you were part of it. You were participating as with the two other individuals from CMLS in that position. So appreciate that. And so if you can share with the attendees your thoughts on it as an MLS exec and how you're seeing it impacting them, and maybe even including some of the questions or concerns that you've heard from your colleagues about what this means for the MLS industry.
Absolutely. Thank you again. As I said, this conversation has been going on for a while. And what it really boils down to, in my eyes, and in many of the others that I've discussed this with, is the marketplace is changing. The marketplace is evolving, and the needs of our customers, the broker participants and their agents, continues to evolve and change. And I speculate, as many others have before me, that that change will accelerate, not minimize, over the next many years. And as we look at policies that are many years old, I'm absolutely confident they served a purpose and an intent in the time they were adopted. But with a changing marketplace, we have to be willing to change and adopt. And even those MLS executives or those MLS staff members and volunteers I've come across that may not appreciate the exact language coming forward in this proposal, as a general statement, they've all agreed that change is here and we need to respond to it. The Emerging Technology Work Group spent multiple meetings and many, many hours reviewing comments and proposals and thoughts and directions, trying to come up with the best crafted plan that met a national marketplace. And one of the greatest concerns that's been expressed to me is this idea of enforcement. We've already talked about it, so I won't go down the path too far. But as Tom noted, the enforcement of this waiver program, first of all, is optional and is left at local discretion. And it was intentionally left at local discretion because the committee could not find a single national solution that met everyone's needs. So there is a lot of thought and intent down this road. I am personally supportive of the language that was crafted and is being forwarded to the larger group, because I believe as an industry we have to face change. And this is one of numerous policies or procedures or methodologies that the MLSs will just have to look at in the next couple of years.
Matt, it's Betsy. I have a couple of questions for you. One, and I did not hear this, so I'm just asking for clarification. Did you say this is an optional policy? This is a proposal and it's not as an optional, correct?
Can I'm sorry, can I interrupt for 1 second? This is Tom Berge. Jenny, do you mind when you're proposing these questions, telling us who the question's coming from and what their capacity is?
Sure. So this is Lola Franklin, and I do not have a capacity on that.
Certainly. 7.42, as it's written today, and Katie, please speak up if I'm incorrect on this, but 7.42 is an optional policies for MLSs to adopt.
Okay, but
even with the proposed language changes, there remains an ability for an MLS choosing not to enforce a membership policy and allowing the marketplace to derive its membership participation. But if they choose to adopt a membership policy, there are some provisions such as the waiver requirement.
Also, I have another from Russ Bergeron, who is representing Red. If a broker spans multiple MLSs and or states and they are a multiple listing service only member of an MLS, will their agents be able to join another MLS also as a multiple listing service only?
Not provided. And if you're, please go ahead.
Go ahead, Matt.
Not as a policy absolute guru or legal expert. Thank you for the question, Russ. Yes, would be my understanding of all the language that I've read, because it is in essence a letter of good standing that you are in good standing at another MLS.
All right, Tom, did you have anything to answer?
No, I was going to reiterate what Matt said. Okay. Start stepping on your toes, Matt.
Kind of challenging on a webinar sometimes, but I think we're doing pretty good. Okay, so then if we go from here, Betsy, do you have any other questions that we would slide in here, or are we good to move to the next?
Just quickly from Chris Carrillo, to expand on jurisdiction versus MLS service area. How can there be a service area if there is no mandatory membership, thus no mandatory listing input for a geographic area?
I can jump in quickly on that. I think you're exactly right, and that's why the name change is there. A service area changes every year based on the companies, the brokerages that want to participate within the MLS. And by not calling it a jurisdiction, it no longer has the same meaning. The jurisdiction has meaning for the local association. The service area is merely an area that MLS chooses to bring in participants within.
Becomes an MLS
This is Matt.
service area and jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. And this is Matt. I'll jump in on that also. Thank you for the question, Chris. Jurisdictional lines drawn on maps are fairly rigid and fairly unflexible. They need to go back and be touched to be changed, whereas the marketplace is determining the start and stop of MLS service areas even today. All of us that have been around MLSs for anything longer than 5 or 7 years has seen a change to where our participants and our subscribers and our listings are coming from. There's more and more consolidations of listings through that process. And so I believe that not having a fixed line drawn on a map, but having a service area will allow the MLSs to draw listings, participants, and subscribers from what naturally fits to their service delivery and to their marketplace.
Okay.
All right, and with that, and again, we'll be doing some more questions at the end as we get these in. But next, I'd like to ask Katie Johnson. Thank you for joining us today, Katie. And so I think we've got you on here a little, maybe two parts, is that not only for just the legal side, as there's some, maybe policy clarification as part of this discussion, but I think how does this affect the associations? And what does this look like for the associations and the MLSs? And I guess I would also ask, what's some questions you've been hearing that maybe haven't been addressed yet that we can talk about here going into these meetings that help people just really understand the full impact of this and the process you guys have gone through to think through what are the impacts of this? And there's always the unintended consequences, but and as much as you dig through those, can't come up with all of them. But I feel like the process you guys have gone through has been very open, and you've encouraged a lot of engagement. So tell me what you're hearing and what you'd like to clarify and share with our attendees today.
Sure. Thank you, Danae. And first, I'm just going to take a second to kind of reiterate what you and my other colleagues on the call have said. Thank you to CMLS for putting this together and allowing this open forum where we discuss the issue and debate the pros and cons. And thank you to everyone, MLS execs, brokers, agents, who have taken a really active engagement in this debate. I think it's actually very inspiring. We've received over 100 emails arguing for or against this proposal. We've all read articles on various publications about it. I think most of us recently saw a well-produced video by a MLS in Ohio. And then, of course, everyone on the call here is really engaged with some great questions too. So this is exciting. Thank you to everybody for getting engaged, because I think ultimately, no matter who you are or where you're from, if you're engaged, you have the same desire as we do, which is to best serve the brokerage and real estate professional community. I think that in terms of how the MLS does that, it's to maintain its purpose as a broker cooperative and to maintain its ability and primary intent of being the authoritative source for property information in their area. And so, we all have that objective in mind, and it's just how do we best achieve it. So thank you. So from the association perspective, I have gotten a lot of questions that to me just kind of maybe illustrate confusion about existing association policies that either are or are not being implemented properly. So I think the best starting point for me is to just address 3 existing association policies that are unchanged and unrelated to this proposal. The first one is that realtor associations cannot require broker principals to purchase MLS service, period. MLS service is an additional service if it's offered through the Realtor Association. It's an additional service that the broker principals can voluntarily choose to purchase. Second, Realtor Associations cannot require broker principals to purchase secondary membership in their association in order to purchase MLS services of that association. So if a broker principal is a member in any Realtor Association, he or she can go to another Realtor Association and purchase the MLS services of that second association without having to become a quote-unquote secondary member of the association. That remains an unchanged rule. It was part of the Universal Access to Services component of Board of Choice that was implemented in 1996 or 1994 even. So that is a long-standing principle of realtor policy. Third, broker principals must belong to an MLS in order for the broker principal's affiliated licensees to have access to that MLS. So in order for licensees in the same office to belong to different MLSs or multiple MLSs, it is true that the broker principal must also belong to those MLSs because as the broker cooperative, the compensation and cooperation flows through the broker. So really just reiterating those longstanding policies, I hope clears up some of the questions and confusion that we've received from association executives. Specifically, a recent concern was how this affects regional MLSs that are owned by multiple shareholder associations. And I think based on the discussion I just had, it shouldn't at all affect those the membership of those associations, since currently the broker principals are allowed to access and choose whatever association they want to align with in terms of getting the MLS access. So that's what I have from the association point of view. From just real quick, the policy comment that you said based on this call, just want to make real clear that right now, 7.42 is an optional policy about how you can assess your participants and subscribers. As we've heard, many MLSs don't even use that as the way that they, they've opted not to implement that policy. What is being recommended is a policy that would prohibit that ability. So in essence, what is being recommended is would be a mandatory prohibition on assessing fees in the way described in 7.42. What's optional is whether or not you enforce the waiver rule, whether and how you enforce a licensee's option to waive MLS service.
Katie, just right at that point, we have a question from Team My Florida Regional. Can you clarify what options an MLS will have if 7.42 passes? Sounded like an MLS could choose not to adopt the rule.
No, that's what I just tried to clear up. So no, the 7.42 passes, that's mandatory.
Katie, this is Matt. It's mandatory that they no longer could require an assessment based upon MLS participation or based upon the MLS as it is today. It would not require them to do anything differently if they have not currently adopted 7.42. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So in my MLS, we have a membership policy, and we do have a published policy to our subscribers and our participants, and we have a waiver practice, and we receive waivers in today, and that is how we administer our membership. We have not adopted an assessment for everyone as 7.42 would allow today, and if that change takes place, it would just no longer give us the option of adding that assessment.
Correct. That same would hold true for California Regional Multiple Listing Service.
Okay, and then Katie, I have two more legal questions for you. By definition and licensing law, is an MLS service area the states in which that MLS exists or operates, since real estate licenses are state-based, and that's from Russ Bergeron from RED.
No, I think that Sam really addressed that question quite well in terms of how you define territory or jurisdiction. The MLS's service area is, by definition, whatever the MLS area is being served. So it's wherever their participants and subscribers are listing and selling property, and not confined by law or policy.
Okay. So now I'd like to take just a couple of minutes if we can go through and have a couple questions about well, you brought it up, I think, Katie, you said about the video that came from, I believe it was RIST in Ohio, that talked about what are some of the concerns with this policy if it goes through, and what would that look like? And so I think that just came out yesterday, or 2 days ago, and saw it in there. And so I don't know if Matt, or would you take maybe one of the 2 points in there that you saw that is there things in there that are of concern to you? Is there some that you thought, well, definitely maybe there's just a misunderstanding in how this came out, and we just need to do a better job explaining it? So you mind taking a point or two? I know there was pocket listings in there, and a few other things that you think need to be clarified or explained.
Were you pointing that at Matt?
Yes, you, Matt.
Okay.
Sorry.
Certainly. You stumbled there for a moment, and I didn't hear. I think the risk video was very well done. I think that it raises a lot of interesting questions, and I think many of the questions that the video raises extends beyond policy 7.42 and 7.43. It extends to the greater value of the MLS and the organized marketplace the MLS extends in the future. So it's hard for me to take a topic like pocket listings or take a topic like password sharing and look at it just in a vacuum of this particular policy. I believe in a marketplace where there is a significant amount of transactions occurring off the MLS is a problem that marketplace needs to find equilibrium and balance in. And likewise, password sharing, if password sharing is happening, let's not be deceived and not believe that it isn't happening. Password sharing and theft of MLS data exists today, and MLSs need to do a better job of implementing procedures, policies, and technology of curtailing that if that MLS believes that it's important. And so the RIST video points to a cost and a burden in policing password sharing, and I would contend that happens today in an MLS that needs to address that topic for their marketplace, has technology options that the industry has provided through the competitive marketplace of the vendors to try to start addressing those. So although I think the questions raised in not just the RIST video, but the multiple articles and the multiple topics and the multiple discussions all have some level of validity, the proposal that's coming before the committee is the best crafted work the technology work group could come up with to striving to meet the needs of evolution and change.
Great, thank you, Matt. And I definitely have heard security is one issue, but I think to your point, it is an issue, and so we would still need to address that separately, but not necessarily that it's, to your point, it's still something that needs to be addressed, and this policy doesn't go down that path. So Betsy, with that, I would ask, do we have additional questions that have come in from our attendees that we can give to our panelists?
Sure thing. This is from Joe Ryan, who is the CEO at Nerin. How can we verify continuing membership in another MLS? We don't have access to their live membership rosters.
Betsy, I'll take that. This is Katie. Again, I think that that's a good question, and was addressed by Tom and Sam, in that it's got to be the local determination of the MLS how they go about verifying, their waivers. And that said, are there things we can do to help them? And I think that there are. So, we will try to brainstorm how can we, at NAR or at the MLS committee level, what can we do to help that administrative burden be less burdensome? How can we help them share information or validate membership? We don't have the tool now, but I'm not sure if we did, that all the MLSs would want to use it anyway, because again, as Matt and others have said, there are MLSs that are currently following this process, and they like the way that they do it. So at your CMLS roundtables at mid-year, I know that would be a great opportunity for those MLSs to share their experiences on how they're implementing the waivers and enforcing this rule. So I just want to also add that, this administrative burden of the waivers is a real concern that we've heard in this discussion. Definitely the unauthorized access to MLS is also a well-noted concern that we've addressed on the call and in other ways. One thing that we haven't heard much on the call, but that is obviously a concern, is this potential loss of a subscriber base. I think that one of the less talked about fears by MLSs is that this may result in agents and licensees choosing not to subscribe to the MLS. And if that's a real concern too, I think that should be discussed as well, because the brokers and licensees have feelings about that as well. If they choose not to subscribe, it's because they don't want the service, and you're forcing them to purchase the service when they don't want it. But it's a real concern for the MLSs as well, who have been, operating under this way for years. So I think that is another valid point to bring into the discussion.
And Katie, I'll piggyback on that if you allow me to. That I agree. I've heard that discussion also, and I've heard a couple of the brokers that have been involved in that discussion in some of the conversations point out the fact that they have artificially not grown across geographic boundaries because of implementations of policies like this. So I do think it is a valid concern for MLSs. I also think that there are some MLSs that they could gain some traction in that, but at the end of the day, there are going to be changes on both sides. And I think the risk and the concern of loss of subscribership is talked about, but not as openly as some of these other topics. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because it is a very real topic as we look at any change to policy and as we continue to see the MLS evolve over time.
Great.
Do we have additional questions, Betsy? We were scheduled for 45 minutes, but we still have some extra time if we have some additional questions that have come in.
We have a couple that we could get to. This is from Doug Roten, an MLS director. If an agent violates the waiver, what punishment or fines can be levied? Can the MLS require that agent to pay MLS fees, pay a fine, and prohibit that agent from signing another waiver for 6 months or longer? Just asking if this was a consideration at the committee level. And also, what is the definition of using the MLS? So agent A is a member of our MLS and agent B is a member of another and has signed a waiver for our MLS. If as a listing is put into our listing, our MLS, so the listing agent A is the listing agent, but agent B is actually the agent servicing that listing for the brokerage. Agent B is making use of our MLS even though they are not actually logging into our system. Is that a violation of the waiver under this proposed policy?
Katie, can I jump in there?
Please do.
So there's two distinctly different complex questions that you proposed there, Betsy, and thank you to the gentleman for asking them. The first one is the committee talked a lot about waivers and collecting some examples of waivers and doing some work on the waiver topic. If this proposal moves forward as it is, I can only speak specifically from my particular waiver at ARMLS and any waivers that I've read from some of my companions in the industry. And in that scenario, yes, there are penalties for not complying with the waiver, and the waiver is signed by the broker participant in that process, because the broker participant is the one that is responsible for the waiver and their agent not utilizing the system. And anyone who would like a copy of the waiver that we use, it is publicly available at armls.com. And I'm happy to send it out to anyone, but I know the committee is looking at gathering waiver examples or doing some type of waiver discussion with Katie's department in the future if this advances forward. In the second scenario, which was far more complex about Agent A and Agent B, from how I followed what you were saying, yes, that would be a violation of the waiver that we utilize at this time and the waivers that I'm familiar with from other MLSs.
Great. Okay.
And just, I wanted to point out, this is Danae, the roundtables, Katie did mention those. If anybody's on here that is attending the meetings next week in person, it is after the forums, but regardless of the outcome of this particular policy, we do host the roundtables. They're Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's 10:30 a.m. We have 3 different rooms where I am certain this will be part of the conversation, and they're very just open, and literally we have roundtables set up so everyone can come in and discuss this. They can share what they're currently doing and just trade information and how it operates in their organization and get a lot of those questions answered either way. So I definitely encourage any of you, if you are there, to make sure and come out to those roundtables. They are open and no set agenda. We do have some topics that we bring to help facilitate discussion, but I'm certain this one will be part of it. Mm-hmm. So what other questions do we have, Betsy?
We just had one come in from Michael Bustamante. Will the waivers adopted by MLSs be subject to review by NAR?
No.
Well, that was pretty simple.
I have the direction on your notes. Keep the answers very clear so as not to get misunderstandings.
So then the other thing, I'm just a little curious, Katie, and with all the responses that you guys got and the interaction with people submitting stuff, what's sort of been the pros and con responses, the percentage of them? Are you seeing that it's mostly support, or are there more people against? What was sort of the general idea of this coming in? And because I've heard very mixed as well. So it's not it's not a problem in our area, or it's a small area. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what did you guys see?
Yeah, the responses we received, like I said, we put out an email address after the mid-year meeting and really solicited MLSs and brokers to give us their feedback. And we had over 100 emails, and we did categorize them in terms of pros and cons. And it was, there are about 80% in favor of this recommended policy change. And I believe we're going to have a summary of those comments and feedback available at the MLS committee meeting next week at the annual conference, so that everybody there can see that we did receive this feedback, and here is the 80-20 breakdown.
Great. Just the sharing of that information, I think it helps everyone have all the different information that went into the recommendation and the process that was involved. And as I understand it, just the level and engagement getting to this point that it's being done before the meeting, I think is great, and that we're having these open conversations to discuss it and really talk about what are the impacts and how it could play out in advance is exciting. So with that, Betsy, if we don't have any other questions.
I have one more, and that's from a couple of different questions, and I think it's a little answered, but we should probably go into it, about the effective date of the proposed policy change. So if this is approved, what's the implementation time period and effective date?
It's a good one.
Okay, this is Katie. I'll take that. So that question is asked and answered in the FAQ document on nar.realtor. and the effective date is January 1st, 2018, or would be January 1st, 2018.
Great. And again, I'll just reference that the links to those FAQs and the video that Tom did do was in the email where we announced this webinar. There is also the white paper that CMLS did. Like I said, it is on the CMLS website that I would definitely recommend, if you haven't already read it, to please go and reference that. And then the last link that is on here, the proposed revision. So it is, I think, I think the information is there to really help you work through this so that how it applies to you locally. And I am very much looking forward to this process next week. And I think it's just a good example of how open dialogue and working through it together is going to just help flesh it out and make it better going forward. So with that, do I have any final comments from any of the panelists? Suggestions, thoughts?
This is Matt. I'll just jump in and thank everyone for their time on the call today and encourage everyone to continue doing reading and research and discussions on this topic. It is an important topic about how MLSs are changing as the needs of the marketplace are changing, and whether you support the proposed language or whether you're against it, your conversation and your participation in the conversation is welcome, as we just need to, as a group, as an industry, continue looking at the needs of our subscribers and brokers and changing.
Very well said.
And this is Tom. I'm actually in my car driving now, but I would like to echo Matt's sentiments. I appreciate everyone's time and giving us the opportunity to speak with you all today and flesh out some of your questions and concerns in regards to this. As I mentioned earlier, we want to try to get this right and do what's in the best interest, mainly, of course, of the brokerage community whom we service. And I look forward to seeing all of you in Chicago next week.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Again, we are recording this. It will be posted on the CMLS website and then also shared, I believe, NAR, you were going to Katie, you guys were going to link to it as well. So we are happy to do that. And if there are any other questions, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but go ahead and send them to mls@realtor.org. If there's questions on any of the policies, the other policies that are coming forward, you can also send them there. And Katie, you said that you guys would look at those and get some responses back before the meetings in Chicago next week.
That's right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you, too.
Bye.